The Native Americans could have won the war against the colonizers, but they lost because they're too good of people. If you've ever studied Native American history or read books like An Indigenous People's History of the United States or Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, you find out very quickly that the Native American people were absolutely amazing people. You see how incredible and capable and fierce these people were. And at some point you begin to ask yourself, how did they lose? Especially when they won so many battles against the U.S. government. And every time the government would lose, they would ask for peace, they would sign a treaty, and then immediately break that treaty. But when you see how many battles the Native Americans won against U.S. soldiers, you just have to ask yourself, how did they lose? And the reason is because they were too good of people. Because even though their warriors were better than the U.S. soldiers, even though they were better strategists than the U.S. soldiers, the reason they lost is because they don't have evil in their heart. They didn't have hatred in their heart. They wouldn't resort to dirty tactics like starving people. They wouldn't resort to dirty tactics like hurting innocent women and children. Whereas the U.S. Army would go into villages where they knew the men weren't there, and they would burn the teepees, and they would attack the women, attack the children. They would burn their winter supplies and starve them out. And the Native Americans didn't do this. Not only was it frowned upon in the Native American community to attack innocents, any of their tribe that did do it, they immediately turned on them. They turned on their own people, chastised their own people for committing those type of crimes. And this is ultimately what led to their defeat. Because when you're fighting an enemy that has no morals, how can you win if you actually have a heart? The Native Americans had a good heart. They had a moral compass that kept them from resorting to dirty tactics like the U.S. Army would. And they were always willing to accept peace. They tried over and over and over again. Over 300 treaties were signed by the Native Americans in the name of peace, and the U.S. government broke every single one of them. And despite all the good in their hearts and all the time and time again that they showed how good of people they were, they still history remembers them as savages, even though the real savages, the ones really doing the scalping, was the American army. They had such good hearts that they would go out of their way and at great cost to their own well-being and safety to protect innocents. And because they were such good people and they were willing to put themselves in harm's way to protect innocents, the U.S. Army used that against them. And every time the Native Americans would come to the table for peace and sign a treaty in the name of peace, the soldiers would wait until the defenses of the Native Americans were down, and then they'd attack them anyway. Because who's going to hold them accountable? No one. It's just heartbreaking to realize that the reason why the Native Americans were almost completely wiped out, the reason they lost all of their lands, all of their rights, all of their true freedom, because they had true freedom, the reason they lost all of that is because they were such good people, because their hearts were actually good and pure, and it cost them everything.